Hi guys, congratulations. You have made it to the end of Unit 8. You are almost done and ready for summer, at least in regards to math. So, good job. All right, let's get into our review for functions. First off, linear functions. They can be written as y equals mx plus b, and they can be drawn as a straight line on a graph. And remember, a function itself is where there is one output for every input, okay? So that's an important thing to remember as well. A nonlinear function, it usually has an exponent, so that right there, that's a huge red flag that it is not linear. And they're drawn as a curve or some kind of other shape on a graph. Functions must pass a vertical line test. So a function can have a vertical line drawn across it on a graph, and the line will only touch the function once at a time. So hopefully that's worded to where you can understand what I mean. But let's say this is our graph, and let me grab another pen. And let's say that we have a line, and maybe that's our function, okay? It's a linear function. If I were to take my pen and bring it across that line, it only ever hits the line at one point, right? If it were something like that, it would then hit it twice, right? Right there, it's hitting that line at two different points, which means it's not a function, okay? So, slope-intercept form. A lot of this unit focused on slope-intercept, and remember that's y equals mx plus b. Okay, so x and y, those are coordinate points or coordinate pairs. The m stands for slope, or also known as the constant rate of change, and b is your y-intercept, or also known as your initial value. So for slope, let's talk about that for a second. The variable is m, right here, also known as the rate of change, but also you can think of it like the steepness of a line, okay? How steep is it? So I have 2 points here. If I were asked to find the slope of the line that both of these points are on, okay, I could say, and we need to find the change in y values over the change in x values, okay? So within these pairs, remember that the x values are first and y are second. So if I'm going to find the difference between these, and the order doesn't matter, okay, as long as you keep the same order for the y's and the x's. So in this case, I mean, I always like to try to keep positive numbers if I can. So like with this, I might choose to do the difference between 15 and 12. So 15 minus 12. Well, that means I need to keep that same pattern with the second one. That means I need to do negative 2 minus 4. Well, 15 minus 12 is 3. Negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6. So reducing this would give me a slope of negative 1/2. Okay? So that's how you would find slope if you're given 2 points. All right? Let's talk about slope and how to, like if you're looking at a graph, how do I determine, is the slope positive, negative, is there a slope, right? Stuff like that. So let's see, this right here, if I were to draw a line like that, that would be a positive slope. This would be a negative slope, okay? A horizontal line would have a slope of 0. That's like flat ground, right? There's no steepness to it. A vertical line has no slope, okay? So that's something to keep in mind as well. You're not going to see that on your test, but it's still good information to have. Okay, I have, oh gosh, what do I have? I have 3 problems left for us. These are pretty close to the last 3 problems on your test, so they're good ones to pay attention to. This first one, a car rental costs $50 for 2 days and $125 for 5 days. Based on this, what is the rate of change in cost per day? Well, rate of change refers to the slope. Okay, so that's what we're finding. All right, now notice it says cost per day, which means that the cost, those are our y values, and the days are our x values. So when I'm finding the difference between those, the cost are my y values, so I could say 125 minus 50, and then the x, those are the days, 5 and 2. So notice I kept the same, like the second piece of information I kept in the front, and then the first piece of information I kept in the back. And then 125 minus 50, that would be 75. And then 5 minus 2 is 3. So 75 divided by 3 is 25. So the rate of change is $25. That also makes sense because if you think about even just this first point, right? If it's $50 for 2 days, well, that means 1 day is $25, right? And there's that $25 per day. For this second point, if g of x equals 7x minus 4, find the value of x that makes g of x equal to 80. So we're looking for the value of x, but it tells us g of x equals 80. Well, then that's what I'm going to plug in up here for g of x. So g of x equals 7x minus 4. I'm going to plug 80 in for g of x and solve for x. Because remember, g of x, that's the same thing as y, right, in function form. And so, so that's why I can plug that in there. And now I'm just going to solve. So I'd say plus 4 to both sides, because negative 4 plus 4 is 0. Those cancel. On the right, we have 7x, and then 80 plus 4 is 84. Right now I'm multiplying by 7 in order to get rid of that or cancel it out. I'm going to divide both sides by 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1, and so I'm left with 1x. And then 84 divided by 7, what do you think that is? Right, 12, right? Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting my multiplication facts. 84 divided by 7 equals 12, yeah. Sometimes when I'm talking in these videos, I second guess myself. So in this case, x would be equal to 12, okay? Now, with these, if they're short answer questions, you should be showing your work, or you should be explaining it in sentences. Those of you that just give me a number answer, like if you just put the number 25 in there, I'm not going to give you full credit, okay? So you do need to consider that when you're going through your test. Last problem. All right, it almost doesn't look like it says car, but it does. A car's value is modeled by the equation f of x equals negative 2,500x plus 42,000, where x represents the number of years after you bought the car. What is the initial value, and why is the slope negative? Okay, so the initial value, well, that's your y-intercept. That's this one. So what that tells us is that the car was bought for $42,000. Okay? Now, why is the slope negative? Well, here's our slope, right? A negative 2,500. An example of what we could say in here is the slope is negative because the car loses value over time. Okay, that would be a complete answer. All right, you guys, that's it. Good luck on your test, and if you need support, just let me know. And otherwise, have an awesome day.